Hi, I've had to do a voiceover on this video due to some dodgy audio quality, so I'm working through all of that. This is a device I made for lifting up the van, or lifting up any vehicle. I had some round tube and I wanted to practice my skills at notching and welding up tube. It's quite a heavy tube, it's about 4 or 5 mil in thickness, varying diameters, and it's enabled me to use a farm jack to jack up the vehicle safely at quite some height as well. I haven't actually measured how far it goes up, but it's more than high enough for my needs. So I thought I'd show you this in operation. It was, like I say, I made it over a couple of weekends, a couple of rainy weekends, and it's been really useful. It made getting the van up in the air safe and quick, which is something that hasn't been in the past. Previously in my green van, I managed to drop that off the jack, damaging the battery box that was underneath. It didn't actually cause any problems, but it was a wake-up call. I needed to do something better than that because it was a bit rubbish. Although this van's got the engine in it, it's just fully equipped with all of its dieselness at this point. I haven't de-iced it at all. It's still a combustion vehicle. The engine and gearbox that's in the front of here that I rip out in the next bit of video actually weighs 288 kilos, so it's a fair bit lighter after having removed that, but that's all still in there at the moment, and it's not too strenuous actually to get that up and get the stands underneath the wheels, which is what I normally use. It gives me good access to the underneath of the vehicle without any great danger. Well, no danger. The van can't go anywhere. Right, I hope this video is not too long and boring. I've sped up the ripping the engine out because if you've seen one engine removal, I think you've seen them all. I appreciate it's of some interest to a few people, but majority of people just want to see the electric side of things going in, and that's fair enough. So I've sped this up as far as I can. This took me about an hour and a half to get the bloody thing out, but we got there in the end. It was a struggle made a little bit worse by the state of my driveway. I could do with concreting the middle section of the driveway. It's like 2 ramps that drove up and down. I never actually thought I'd be working on vehicles in the back garden. Things change. So I could do with digging all that out and replacing it with concrete. It makes things like moving the engine crane, which at this point actually on the video starts to get a bit difficult. I have to sort of re-jack it a few times or lift it on the engine hoist a few times, putting stuff under the wheels of the engine hoist to allow them to move because it's soft ground and it was digging in. I was having to use a ratchet strap around the engine crane to actually get it to move because I was doing this all on my own. Anyway, did it. It's fine. It was a sense of achievement once it was out. It's getting quite close to coming out now. Like I said, I sped all this up because it's a little bit boring. I'd already taken the drive shafts out some weeks previous because I had a problem with the green van. One of the drive shafts, the spline failed. I had a bit of a breaking down, and I had to repair it quick. So yeah, I'd already taken the drive shafts out, which saved me a job. Now we get to the slightly more interesting parts. That is a motor for an NV200 without its inverter. I'm going to power it from the back. We'll get into that much later on. Now that is a gearbox from a Golf or similar, and I was going to use that to drive the front and rear differentials, but it wouldn't really fit underneath the van any sense and would probably mean cutting the floor about, so that wasn't really a starter. And there's the gearbox that came out. I've kept that because it's a good spare for my green van. So if I have any problems with that, I have one there. That is a transfer box from, or transfer case from, a Jeep, and I'm going to use that. It's selectable four-wheel drive, but it also has a reduction when you select four-wheel drive, this particular one, and that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use the Nissan Leaf to drive that through a reduction box, so I'll get to in a bit. But before I actually worked out how I was going to do this, I didn't have to go around the houses, because trying to get anything that's low profile enough to fit underneath the van is pretty difficult. There isn't as much room as you'd at first thought. That is the spline adapter that goes out the automatic gearbox. There is an automatic gearbox for a Jeep. That one is US, and I was going to use the planetaries out of that. Again, I'll show you that in a bit, at least going through the thought process of how could I make that work. So I managed to get that cheap off eBay. It was about 100 quid, and it gave me something to play with and helped me formulate my plans, I suppose. Yeah, so one stage I was going to make an adapter up with the spline to go straight into the transfer box and use the end of the automatic transmission, the casting, to fabricate up an adapter plate. I've gone away pretty much from that idea now, but we shall see. I might end up using that and welding it to a plate. We shall see. Right, this is the innards of that automatic gearbox, and great fun taking it apart and seeing how it all worked. Not amazingly useful for me at the moment. I'm going down a different route, but that particular planetary set there did seem to be 2-to-1. If you could spin all the right parts in the right way, you could make a gear reduction. I was very taken by a company, I think they're called Talkbox, and they make a really well engineered solution to this problem, but it's a little bit more money than I wanted to spend. So this is hopefully the solution. I was on the Open Inverter forum, and I saw a really good post about a chap named Paul who needs a reduction for rear wheel drive vehicle, pretty much exactly the same as I do, although mine will hopefully be 4-wheel drive as well when I flick a lever, but basically it will be rear wheel drive most of the time and will stop a lot of problems with 4-wheel drive drag and stuff to some extent. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm working out what the gear ratio between the two gears is, and seeing what I'm up against. So anyway, I go through all of this and I do a quick 2 marks and turn the gears, and you get to a point it's about 2.5 to 1. It ends up being, I don't know, 2.45 to 1. I'm afraid I haven't got my notebook with me. I've left that somewhere else. The point of making the video, which is a bit dumb of me, but there we are. But yeah, so that gives a gear reduction. So I want to use the casing because it saves a lot of machining, and I can remachine the shaft that's sticking up, the shaft that's just stuck up there. Make a new one of those, so take the bearings off, take the gears off, make a new one of those, so that comes out of there with a spline on it, with a different bearing on the top side where the gear is pointing out now. So that will be 35mm inside bore, 72mm outside, and 17mm thick. So a few dimensions on that part will have to change to accommodate that and end up with the right bearing preload. However, I reckon it's doable. I'm also going to have to set my CNC machine up to do some 4-axis work, which I've never really done a lot of, to machine the splines on the main body of this part, adapter, whatever you want to call it, and also then the splines coming out of the shaft, or the shaft that comes out will have to have splines on it, and that will have to fit the transfer box. So some interesting times ahead. Hopefully that's my project for the next week or two. Get the CNC working in 4-axis mode, and get my brain working in 4-axis mode. That might take somewhat longer. So I went around and I counted all of the gears. I know it's a bit. I actually counted all the gear teeth, obviously. It's important to get this these are the little details that people don't show you in the video. Look, finished vehicle. It's hours and hours of going round and round in circles, trying to work out how to do a thing and how to make sure that what you're doing is going to be worthy of the time and effort that you're putting into it. Because there's nothing worse than getting to a point where you've spent a load of money and you've got a vehicle or a project or whatever that doesn't work as you'd hoped, and it was just down to the fact that you didn't put enough time into doing your research. So that gear cluster I got in my hand now is going to be my final drive. The small diameter shaft coming out is going to be a remachined part that's going to come out of the box, and yeah, that basically is the output side of things. We can have different bearings on it because the shaft diameter coming out is going to be much bigger to give the strength, and also allow me to have the splined shaft coming out, which is the right diameter to go into the transfer case. Right, this is the casing that's going to have to be modified. The bit I was just pointing my finger to there is going to be, that's the output seal that I was pointing my finger to, and that's the output. That raised casting with a hole in it, that is actually sort of the brush carrier, and the brush earths all of the internal gears and shafts. I guess it helps reduce static buildup or whatever. Anyway, I will be reinstalling that part, but that part that I have in my hands, that's going to be remachined in. I've decided to cut the audio from this section of video and sped it up massively, otherwise it's tediously boring and the video's going on forever, and I do apologise for that. But a lot has got into even the simplest things, and I wanted to share as much as I possibly could. Why is that now going the right way? That's interesting. Right, so now we've got all that machined off nice. We've got the shaft coming through here. Now that shaft's not going to be long enough, and it's not going to be strong enough to actually transmit all the power of the awesomeness in a Leaf motor. But stripping its assembly down, that's the next thing to be doing. and hopefully that'll be in the next video. So I'll let you know how I get on. Hopefully see you soon.